Alright, so welcome back to our Ask PropertyLimBrothers series, and today we're going to answer a couple of questions from our Facebook, Instagram, and of course our YouTube comment section. So let's kickstart. Alright, so we have a question from one of our audience from Hong Kong. So the question goes like this: I'm from Hong Kong. I've viewed your video on YouTube for a long time and interested in a couple of properties that you guys are selling right now. So may I ask if I can actually buy a property as a foreign national? So that's part one of the question. Part two of the question is that will I qualify for permanent residence or employment pass in the event if I were to buy a property in Singapore? So let's answer these two questions. So the very first question is that as a foreign national, yes, you definitely qualify to buy a property in Singapore because Singapore properties are open for purchase by foreigners, but of course there are certain categories that foreign buyers are able to buy. So there are some properties that you cannot buy. So maybe I talk about the properties that you can't buy first. So you can't buy a HDB property. You cannot buy a brand new EC that is launched in conjunction with HDB and the private developer. You are not allowed to buy a landed property that is based on the mainland of the Singapore island, but you can buy a landed property that is situated along Sentosa Cove. And for landed properties on the mainland Singapore island, if you want to buy it, you will have to seek what we call a LDAU approval, which is the Land Dealings Unit with SLA. And if they were to grant you a special approval, then you are allowed to buy on the Singapore island itself for landed property. So the most common purchase by foreign nationals definitely will be the condominium. So you can either buy the brand new direct from developers, condominium launches, or you can buy the resale properties that's in the open market as long as it's a condominium. So Singapore properties, there's like 99 years and there's also freehold kind of status. There's also a third category which is called the 999-year leasehold, but it's as good as freehold because it's like almost 1,000 years to go. So it's largely populated by different tenures, so it's important to check the tenure of the project before launching into it. Some of the key things to take note were also mentioned in our previous episode in our Ask and Invest series. But I think the most important thing to note is the amount of taxes that you have to pay if you are a foreign national. You will have to pay a 20% additional buyer's stamp duty if you are doing your first purchase or second purchase or third purchase. It's all one flat rate at 20% at this current point of recording, which is in December 2019. So you also have to pay the normal buyer's stamp duty. So now it's calculated at approximately 4%. There's a detailed calculation. Basically, if it's a property that's above $1 million, you just take 4%, multiply by the purchase price, less of $15,400, you get the formula for the buyer's stamp duty. So all in all, just prepare probably about 24% in terms of additional taxes and the buyer's stamp duty on top of the purchase price. You're allowed to take a bank loan as a foreign national. Of course, you need to have some proof of income from your country based on your employment, based on your business, based on your assets as well. So that one, I will leave it to you to speak with your banker. So basically, I hope that answers your first question. Part two, am I allowed to qualify to become a PR or to apply for employment pass in the event if you were to buy a property in Singapore? Alright, so that question is a little bit hard for us to answer you because that is subject to approval with ICA. Alright, so you got to apply with the Immigration Authority of Singapore, and usually for permanent resident status, based on our circle of influence, based on what we know, is that usually Singapore government will look at how long have you been working in Singapore, and then what is your economic contribution in Singapore, or if you are married to a local Singaporean, then it's easier to apply for permanent residence, or if you have children here already. So it also depends on how many years have you been in Singapore working and contributing to the economy. And part two of your second question is that can you apply for employment pass? Alright, so employment pass, definitely you need to have employment in Singapore. I think that would be the main criteria based on employment to apply for employment pass. And then usually people will work upwards from here, from an employment pass to a PR, and in future if you want to convert to a Singapore citizen, then of course we welcome you, but of course that will be based on your application with the local government. Alright, so we hope that this answers your two questions. Alright, let's move on to the next one. All right, so we have a next question, and this question says that thank you once again for a detailed look at Sengkang Grand Residences during one of your new launch, new project review series. And the question goes like this: do you think that it makes sense to look at resale properties around Sengkang Grand Residence, given that the PSF of the surrounding projects is probably at around $1,200 per square foot? And do you think it has potential to rise up in future when Sengkang Grand Residences is going to hit its TOP? Alright, so if you have looked at our new project review series, we have talked about Woodleigh. Recently, we have also talked about Sengkang Grand Residences. So Sengkang Grand, in terms of the pricing, is probably around the $1,700 per square foot mark, depending on the large one or smaller units that you're buying. So of course, what's going to happen when it hits its TOP period is that if you were to be somebody that has already bought during the launch, likelihood is that you might either want to move in and stay, or you might rent out, or if let's say the price has increased by a certain percentage, then probably you might want to offload the property in the resale market. So we've also talked about this phenomenon for TOP projects usually in Singapore over the past years, is that because of the fact that everybody has bought in during the launch, they have waited for a specific period of time, and when it hits its TOP period, and when all the owners there has already completed their seller stamp duty, usually the owners will want to have like an invisible range that all of them will hope to sell off in the resale market. So this is what we call the appreciation usually when it hits towards its TOP period. So it is an unorchestrated kind of phenomenon that has usually happened for new projects, because of course there are different kinds of objectives by different owners. But if let's say most percentages of the owners have already bought it and they are planning to move in and stay, or if they have the holding power and they can't fetch the price that they are hoping for, they will rather rent it out, or they will probably just move in and then rent out the existing property, or they will just move in and stay. And so there's different kind of objectives by different people. So what we're trying to say is that it's quite unlikely that people will sell back at the same purchase price when they bought from the new launch developer. There are instances whereby people do sell back at the same purchase price when they bought from the developer comparing to the TOP period. But for large developments, I would say, in our opinion, based on the large average percentage kind of movement, most owners want to see some kind of appreciation after waiting for like 3 to 4 years of the construction period. If not, it does not make sense for them to sell off in the resale market. They might as well probably just hold on to the property if they have the holding power. So I think it depends on several other factors as well, like how many units are there in the specific projects, what is the kind of profile of the people that have bought into this development. Are they purely buying for investment, or are they purely buying to stay because probably this is like a suburban area, there's a lot of upgraders, or most of the people that are buying here is really like, you know, they have kids and stuff like that. So you have to look into the kind of profile of the people that are buying here. So based on this specific question, our audience is asking about Sengkang Grand, and when it TOPs, likelihood the bulk of people that have bought Sengkang Grand will want to see some kind of appreciation here. So if that happens, alright, so assuming if that happens, naturally I think the surrounding projects will see some kind of appreciation as well, because that will then move in tandem. I'm not saying that it will match this same level of pricing as Sengkang Grand because of age differences. I mean, the surrounding projects was launched at different age bandwidth. Some projects are already probably like 10 years old or 12 years old. So the age is one thing, the project is one thing, because Sengkang Grand is integrated. But I think more or less there will be some kind of slight appreciation depending on the economy in a couple of years down the road. So there are also many different factors, but based on this factor itself, yes, sometimes we do see price appreciation brought about by new launches in the same area. That does happen, because in our own terms we call it a substitutional kind of effect. Because if let's say I want to buy a project at this vicinity, and if I cannot afford this most expensive product, I might go for a substitutional kind of product. And this product, in a sense, because of this up push, might then come up a little bit in a sense. So we can probably see what happens in 3 to 4 years time. So we have a last question, is that I've just watched your YouTube video on Woodleigh residences. Thanks for sharing. One thing I would like to know is that if I were to pay probably $1,800, $1,900 per square foot for Woodleigh and maybe $1,700 over dollars for SENGKANG Grand Residences, would it be better for me to probably buy a slightly older integrated project nearby? Alright, so based for sensitivity, probably I do not want to mention which project was mentioned, but maybe I would then refer our audience to some of our past episodes that we'll also talk about the behavior of new developments versus resale. Alright, so that would then boil down to a time frame period, because let's talk about the resale price movement. For a resale project, basically to see an uptrend, there are various factors that has to be kicked in. Alright, so for example, are there upswing in terms of pricing at the surrounding developments? That's one thing. Secondly, what we have just answered in the second question is that is there a kind of substitutional kind of effect that's happening, probably brought about by another new launch that's right beside the resale? Thirdly, is the economy doing well? Fourthly, are there a lot of competition around your development that you're planning to buy? And the last and most important factor is the volume and the transaction, which we always talk about, is that are there enough volume that's happening month to month, year to year? Because volume will dictate the upswing of your valuation pricing. So for example, if let's say every month there's a couple of transactions and every transaction is on a slight uptick compared to the previous one, and month to month, probably from Jan to December, overall you see an upswing of 5%, then that is actually positive, because it will then benefit the later owners that wants to exit from the resale development itself. So if this check boxes has been hit, then yes, I mean probably you can look into a slightly older integrated development that's in the resale market. But if you were to look at the amount of volume and transactions in Singapore, there is like a close range of probably like 40% or 50% month to month, vis-a-vis of new launch versus resale. So I would say in Singapore, probably we're a little bit different. We have different kind of buyer audience for different kind of products. Some people really love to have brand new projects. They don't mind waiting. Some people would prefer a resale development because you can get to see the actual view, you can feel the actual unit, and probably you don't want to pay for the new launch kind of pricing. Second phenomenon is that we think that definitely in Singapore we are different. Refer to our past episode why Singapore is different, because new projects are definitely more expensive in terms of PSF and overall quantum prices, although developers probably are building slightly smaller based on the new regulations. They can't go too small as well. So definitely new projects are always more expensive than resale. Due to government land sales, due to en-bloc activities, the developers has a certain margin to break even. They have a certain margin for profit as well by doing this new project for consumers. So inevitably, I think that is the case for a new launch to be definitely more expensive than resale. That's been in Singapore for past many years. And audiences wise, probably about 50% love new launches, 50% love resale. So I think in terms of resale or new launch, it really depends whether which one do you like, which one do you favor. And importantly, look back at our past episodes, we talk a lot about the checklist. We talk about differences between new launches and resale. Both has its pros and cons, so it really depends on your personal preference. Alright, so that concludes our 3 questions for our Ask PropertyLimBrothers series, and we're coming to the end of 2019. And we're very thankful for the whole of past 12 months and the activities that has brought along PropertyLimBrothers to today. And for 2020, we want to wish you a great year ahead. And thank you for supporting all our content on our PropertyLimBrothers channels. And our team hope to add more value to our audience moving on from 2020. And we hope to see you soon. Cheers!